Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.
The White House today unveiled its rollout plan for getting children ages 5 to 11 vaccinated, pending the FDA's authorization. Vaccine advisors to the FDA are set to meet next week to consider authorizing Pfizer's vaccine for the age group. NTD's Arlene Richards has the details.
Vaccines against the CCP virus for children ages 5 to 11 could be just weeks away, so the White House is making sure it's ready. Right now, the Pfizer vaccine is waiting authorization by the FDA and usage recommendation by the CDC. Federal regulators are set to meet next week to make the decision. The Biden administration said Wednesday they've secured enough doses to vaccinate 28 million children in the age group. The administration's rollout plan involves offering vaccinations in settings that parents and kids are familiar with and trust.
We've already enrolled more than 25,000 pediatricians, family doctors, and other primary care providers to administer vaccines. And we're working with states and localities to enroll more.
The administration's also partnering with the Children's Hospital Association for the vaccine rollout and will offer vaccines to kids at school. White House officials said getting accurate information to parents and building trust is paramount. Public health experts say getting kids vaccinated will help end the pandemic.
In the era of Delta, children get infected as readily as adults do, and they transmit the infection as readily as the adults do.
But a number of physicians have raised concerns about children receiving the vaccine. They say since kids are at extremely low risk for severe illness from the CCP virus, giving them a vaccine with unknown long-term effects is not worth the risk. The FDA will make the final call on authorization for the 5 to 11 age group over the next 2 weeks.
The NYPD's taken action against 2 cops who pushed a subway commuter out of the boarding zone. The man says he was pushed out after he suggested they wear a mask. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on what happened.
Well, now that I'm out of the station, I can legally take off my mask. But down there, you could be fined $50 for going maskless, and this applies to everyone. But what if you saw officers who weren't wearing masks? What would you do?
Andrew Gilbert in the blue there reportedly hassled the officer pushing him for not wearing a mask. A Twitter user uploaded this video, which has been viewed nearly 2 million times. The officer pushed Gilbert out of the boarding zone with the help of another officer. Gilbert told AMNY, "The male officer was playing dumb and claimed he couldn't hear me. I kept asking him the same thing, and then he said, 'You're being disruptive.'" Commissioner Dermot Shea of the NYPD said they've responded to Tuesday's incident.
I've been the first to defend officers. I think many of you know that. I'm also the first to call out wrong when it's wrong. Absolutely inexcusable. So as soon as I saw that yesterday, I reached out to Kathy. I quickly reached out to Patrol when I learned that they were not transit officers and there's discipline imposed.
Shea didn't say how the 2 officers would be disciplined, but he said they wouldn't be fired or suspended. Mayor Bill de Blasio had a few words for maskless officers.
We've given this instruction 1,000 times, and if you're going to be in law enforcement, you actually have to participate in following the law.
The CDC's national mask mandate for transportation hubs like subways and taxis is still in place. And it's unclear when the agency will call off that order. And when that happens, New York State would still need to remove their mandate before riders can ride maskless. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
China is pressuring McDonald's to use its digital currency in Chinese stores during the Beijing Olympics. That's according to a Financial Times report. The regime plans to internationalize the world's first digital currency. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
China has big ambitions to launch the world's first digital currency. A digital version of the Chinese yuan will give Beijing detailed data over every single transaction made using this type of currency. The regime has been wanting to expand its use among foreigners, and it sees the upcoming Beijing Winter Olympics as a great chance to do so. Now, the Financial Times reports that Chinese authorities are pressuring one of the Olympics' biggest sponsors, McDonald's, to allow digital yuan payments at its restaurants. McDonald's declined to tell the Financial Times whether it's under pressure. The outlet says other American companies like Nike and financial services giant Visa are under similar pressure. The two companies didn't comment on the issue.
President Biden's nominee for the next U.S. ambassador to China is testifying before Congress. He says the U.S. will continue to follow the One China policy, but also help Taiwan defend itself. NTD's Allison Lee has more on the nominee's stance on China.
President Biden's nominee to be U.S. ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns, touched on many issues at his Senate hearing on Wednesday, including Xinjiang, Tibet, Hong Kong, and Taiwan.
The PRC's genocide in Xinjiang, its abuses in Tibet, its smothering of Hong Kong's autonomy and freedoms, and its bullying of Taiwan are unjust and must stop. Beijing's recent actions against Taiwan are especially objectionable.
Communist China has never ruled Taiwan but claims it as part of its territory and vows to take it over by force. The Chinese military has sent an unprecedented number of aircraft to Taiwan's air defense zone in recent weeks. Burns says the U.S. is right to follow its One China policy on Taiwan. Under the policy, the U.S. cut diplomatic ties with Taiwan in 1979 and recognized Communist China instead.
But we're also right to support the peaceful resolution of disputes in this region and to oppose unilateral actions that undermine the status quo and undermine the stability of the region.
The nominee says the U.S. cannot trust China to meet its commitments on Taiwan. He explains that when administration after administration followed the One China policy, they did so on the presumption that there would be peace between Taiwan and China, but there isn't much peace in the region.
I think the Congress and the executive branch have every right to continue to deepen our security cooperation, to expand our arms provisions to Taiwan. That's the most important thing we can do. Our responsibility is to make Taiwan a tough nut to crack, help it increase its asymmetric defenses through the Taiwan Relations Act.
The nominee has been a career diplomat and used to serve as the U.S. ambassador to NATO. He is not expected to face significant opposition. Allison Lee, NTD News.
And over in New York City, the mayor is ordering all city workers to get the vaccine. No ifs, ands, or buts. He's eliminating the option for weekly COVID tests. So if you're a city worker and you don't get vaxxed, you don't get to work. NTD's Phil Zoe has the story.
New York City is expanding its vaccine mandate from teachers to all city workers. That includes the largest fire department and the biggest police force in the country, the mayor said on MSNBC.
It's a mandate now for all city agencies, all city workers. It's time for everyone to get vaccinated. Our public employees are going to lead us out of the COVID era.
City workers have less than 2 weeks to get the shot. If they don't, they'll be put on unpaid leave. No options for negative COVID tests. Workers who comply by October 29th will be rewarded with a $500 bonus on their paychecks. The commissioners for New York's fire and police departments said earlier this month they support a vaccine mandate, but there are critics.
It's not right. It's never been done in American history. Never have you had to show up and get a vaccine or you can't get paid. I've never heard that before.
Officer Joseph Imperatrice is the founder of Blue Lives Matter in New York City.
What we always learned as police officers was to never ask anyone about their medical conditions. Now, all of a sudden with COVID, you suddenly break the rules with all the HIPAA laws and people are being discriminated against, especially first responders.
Being in the police force for over 15 years, Imperatrice says it's more about freedom of choice and not being forced to do something.
Yeah, I did take the vaccine, but that is my choice. But I don't feel that other officers or paramedics or firemen or sanitation workers should be forced to take something against their body.
New York's Police Benevolent Association told NTD News whether or not to take the vaccine is the individual's personal medical decision. They plan to take legal action to protect the rights of its members. Phil Zoe, NTD News, New York.
And the New York City Firefighters Union has responded to Mayor de Blasio's mandate. The union standing by its members, saying it will defend their right to a personal choice to remain unvaccinated. Here's Uniformed Firefighters Association President Andrew Ansbro, who's worried that the mandate will mean for New York City.
I'm worried. I'm worried that hundreds of my members that have told me they will not comply, I'm worried for them. I'm worried about their jobs, but I'm also worried for the New York City residents. I have told my members that if they choose to remain unvaccinated, they must still report for duty. And if they are told that they cannot work, it will be the department and the City of New York that sends them home, and it'll be the department and the City of New York that has failed to protect the citizens of the City of New York. The blame will not be on New York City firefighters.
Hansbrough says they will have to close firehouses if all the unvaccinated firefighters are sent home. He said that of the currently infected members, about half are unvaccinated, while the other half are vaccinated. He said this shows the vaccine isn't stopping any firefighters from getting infected. Hansbrough proclaimed that everybody knows the vaccine only has the ability to lessen virus symptoms, not stop transmission. He emphasized that's why the union believes getting the vaccine should be a personal choice. The association says it will explore all avenues to protect its members. And one group of New Yorkers is getting attention for its method to defy the vaccine mandates. NTD's Arian Pazdar found out more about the demonstrators and their protests.
It doesn't matter whether you want a whole meal or just a coffee. If you want to enjoy it indoors here in New York City, you have to be vaccinated. Now, last night I joined a group of demonstrators who went to a cafe without showing proof of vaccination. And it ended just the way they expected it to end. The group of a little more than 20 people met at a park in downtown Manhattan. It's not their first visit to an establishment they're not allowed in. They're calling their protests sit-ins. According to the organizer, the vaccine mandate doesn't make any sense, especially for these kinds of businesses.
It's very, very clear that restaurants are not the key point of transmission. It's very, very clear to me that there's some deeper agenda going on behind these things. I find it very difficult to believe that a virus that leaked from a Chinese laboratory in the middle of an election year where there was a vaccine available 2 days after the election was over was somehow a coincidence.
Another protester went so far as to say that these kinds of mandates endanger America as we know it.
Our rights are in peril. Our country is in peril. And as far as I'm concerned, vaccine mandates is the end of America. That is the end of free choice.
Once at the cafe, an employee told the group to leave because they didn't provide proof of vaccination as requested. Shortly after that, the employee called the police. Now, it's interesting to note that the police didn't remove the group of people because of the vaccine mandate, but rather because of criminal trespass, since the business decided not to serve them.
It has nothing to do with the mandate.
Correct, yeah, they said they don't want you here, you're causing a disturbance in their store, so they're requesting that you leave.
One demonstrator refused to leave. He fell on the ground in the process. He said he was pushed. Police say he laid himself down. They arrested and took him away after he remained on the ground and refused to leave. None of the other demonstrators was arrested. They're planning to do more protests like this one in the future. Arian Pazdar, NTD News, New York.
If you visited California, you might have heard of the burger restaurant In-N-Out. One location in San Francisco had to close temporarily because it refused to check diners for vaccination status. We hear more from NTD's Jason Blair.
The city of San Francisco forced this In-N-Out location to temporarily shut down for refusing to check the vaccine status of its customers. The restaurant is located here in the city's iconic Fisherman's Wharf area and is the only one in San Francisco. The city's mandate requires that restaurants check the vaccine status for customers who wish to dine indoors. Arnie Wensinger, the company's chief business and legal officer, said in a statement, "We refuse to become the vaccination police for any government." The San Francisco Department of Health said that the location repeatedly ignored warnings before they shut it down. The restaurant currently is open again for business, however, for takeout orders only. So far in San Francisco, In-N-Out has been the only restaurant that has been closed for violating the mandate. Jason Blair, NTD News, San Francisco.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to catch all of our programs on TV. NTD Evening News is on every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Find your local NTD channel at ntd.com/TV.
evening. Thanks for joining us.
There is reporting that can be trusted. There are programs that can inspire every generation. There is a television network worth watching and sharing. Our commitment is to bring you the facts and to show you the world. We won't be divided by politics, and we won't be swayed by the dollar. We believe in the strength of our nation and the hope in our shared humanity. We are NTD Television, and we are proud to bring you news you can trust and programs that make you smile. NTD Television, news you can trust.